Hi everyone, it's Min and welcome to Plant Nation, and behind the camera is V, and today I'm going to show you how to propagate a pothos. So to my left is a pothos. So this is called a golden pothos, or also known as devil's ivy or Epipremnum, and it's a very viney plant. It produces a lot of area roots, and you might be thinking, oh, what's an area root? Well, I'll show you. So you can see this vine. So right here, there's a little tiny aerial roots. When they get huge, these aerial roots can actually be a lot bigger. And this is one of my favorite plants, one of my favorites to take care because it's so easy to take care. The other part is it's so easy to propagate. So this is classified as a beginner's plant, and I must admit this plant here was the first plant I received from my dad, who loves gardening as well. So let's continue and I'll show you how to propagate. So there's two ways of propagating this plant. So there's soil propagation or water propagation. So the first part is I need some cuttings. So I've got my clippers here. So make sure you disinfect the clippers and make sure you rinse off any disinfectants on it. I tend to use alcohol swabs and then rinse it off with water. So you want to make sure your clippers are clean because you don't want to infect the mother plant. So what you're also looking for is aerial roots on the vine. So you might see here is an aerial root. And you want to see an aerial root that's mature and not young. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to cut the vine, and also you want to cut about, I'll say about 1.5 centimeters below an aerial root or node. Okay, so I've made my cutting. So if you can see here is actually an aerial root coming out from a node, and that's what you're looking for, because this is where the new roots will come through. So you can see this one here is a mature aerial root because it's nice and dark. If I turn it up here, this one has 3 aerial roots, one that's mature and 2 that are very tiny. So I tend not to try and propagate from a tiny or immature aerial root because it's harder for the plant to actually produce roots, or it takes longer as well. So now I've got my cutting, so I'm going to show you how to propagate. So the first way, the soil propagation, which is my least favorite way. So what I tend to do now is if I cut it again, so I have my cutting, and all I need to do now is actually pop it in soil. So I have my soil here. So this soil has basically 80% premium potting mix, 10% peat moss and 10% perlite. So you want a soil that's kind of airy, it basically drains very well. Also, with my cuttings, the first part is I like to actually keep it in slightly moist soil, and that's why I put the peat moss in it. So all I need to do now is make sure that you pop it in the soil and with the aerial root in the ground. So I have my chopstick here, and I put a little hole. And then tuck it in. Now when you're actually putting in soil, you don't want to completely press down the soil. but make sure there's enough hold so the actual new roots can actually grip onto something. Now, you might be thinking why I kept this aerial root right here and this node right here. The reason for that is often I find that I will get a new leaf growing out on the side right there. So let's see how it goes. So once I pop it in the soil, I'm going to water it. Now I actually completely soak the soil with water and make sure you can see water is actually dripping from it. So you want to make sure it's thoroughly watered, especially at the beginning. The reason for that is you're basically taking a cutting that's from the mother plant. So it's used to having lots of water, lots of nutrients going to the vines. And so now it's on its own, so I need to make sure that's actually well moist. And I will tend to keep this well moist for the next couple of weeks there. So I need to make sure that the water is moist. Now the reason why I put it in a terracotta is that I tend to overwater my plants, from this type of plant to even a cactus. So I tend to put in a terracotta, that way if I do overwater it, it's okay. The terracotta, the water will actually seep out, not from just the bottom, but from the actual sides. It's just the type of material of the pot. So I've got still the rest of my cutting sitting here. So this is the rest of my cutting, and you can see there is a mature arrowroot. Now I'm concerned that if I cut here, well, I could actually propagate because there is one main arrowroot there, one mature arrowroot. So all I'm going to do is I can actually just plunk it in water. So I've got my water jug with some cuttings I've done previously. I can just put it in water. So I can just put it in water like this and make sure that the arrowroot is underneath the water. You don't want the arrowroot sitting above because it's unlikely to grow roots. So let's pop it down a bit more. The other reason why I didn't actually cut this top section here is because there's actually a new leaf coming out. If I cut it here and make another cutting, most likely this leaf would die, and I kind of think it's quite pretty, so let's leave it on and I'll just put it in the water and propagate it. Now this is actually my favorite way of propagating a pothos, and the reason for that is you can actually see the beautiful arrowroots coming out. So let me show you some that I did previously. Now first of all, this one here is probably about 3 months, and you can see the arrowroots are very long. You can see the roots are very long, and the story behind this cutting is that it actually was just a stick. So I thought, oh, well, it may die, but let's just experiment. So I just put it in the water and voila, look at this. It's producing just from a stem, we produced the roots, and now it produced a new flower, well, a new leaf, and also there's another leaf coming out. So I think that's pretty impressive. I'll just put it back in its pot. Now this one here is definitely ready for potting. You can see the roots have grown very long, and there's lots of roots coming out of the main root area as well. And then I have one that I did probably about a week ago. Let me just go and find it. Here it is. So this one here is a week ago and it's grown probably about that much, which is pretty cute. So yes, that's how to propagate a pothos. So you can either do it as soil propagation or my favorite, water propagation. Well, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a fantastic day there and I'll catch you next video.